just woke up. It's like 6 in the morning. I went to bed at like 3. I'm gonna read a little bit, go to the gym, and then keep reading. The American Roommate Experiment. Okay, currently she's staying at her friend's apartment and she thinks somebody's trying to break in. So she calls 911. And when she's explaining what's happening, the dude on the outside starts talking and come to find out that it's her friend's cousin. And her friend is away on her honeymoon. She just got married. And she tells the friend, like, explain her, so I know that you really know her. And she's like, he's like, I'm one of her cousins. I know she just got married. She's on her honeymoon. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the wedding. And she's like, no, it can't be him. The one who wasn't at the wedding, it can't be him. It turns out that she has like a really, really, really big crush on him. And she just called the cops on him because she thought he was trying to break in, but it's just her cousin. Okay, so she lets him into the apartment finally after she knows who he is. They have a little back and forth. She's completely embarrassed. And then he says like, she left keys for me. They were at this pizza place. And she's like, oh man, she's kind of going through it. She's nervous. She's trying to make jokes, but they're not landing. And his jokes are landing, but they land, but she's so like, she has the biggest crush on him that like his jokes land and she's just stuck like eyeing him up and down. So then they get into this whole debate of who's actually gonna stay there because she's like, no, I'll leave. Like, your cousin already promised you the apartment. And he's like, no, I'll leave. It's fine. And he asked her like, why are you here? She's like, oh, just to water the plants, this, and this. And he's like, but you have like all your stuff. So like, why are you really here? Well, she's like, oh, something minor happened at my apartment. And he's like, minor warrants you, like all of this stuff. And then she tells him like, there's like a plumbing issue and something happened with her ceiling. So her apartment right now is like, she can't live there. So then finally they decide that like, okay, she's going to stay there for tonight and that he'll come back the next day and they'll act like nothing has happened, that they just met, and they'll go from there. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. It's funny, not only does she have a crush on him, like a big crush on him, she's like stalked him. Like she's like, oh, I know he likes pineapple on pizza. She's like, oh, I know he likes sunrises more than sunsets. She's like, she stalked him. He says at the end, he's like, it's nice to finally meet, her name is Catalina, but they call her Lena. He's like, it's nice to finally meet Lena's best friend. And she gets like shocked. Like, she's like, so. She wakes up in the morning and she says, I'm going to message my friend and tell her everything that happened. But she can't go through with it. But she gets a call from her brother. She has a younger brother and a dad. And she hasn't told them that she doesn't work her job anymore. She had a well-paying job as an engineer, but she quits it to become like a writer. After trying to get a hold of her brother for a couple of weeks, he finally calls her back and she's like, where have you been? Are you okay? This, that, and that. And he tells her that he has a new job. And he tells her that it's a job at a club, a nightclub, and he's not serving drinks. So she plans to go up on this trip to go visit her dad. She wants to take her brother with her, and she wants to break the news to him.
All right, so now I'm at work, and I always read when I'm at work because what else, you know? Now, now it's reading from Lucas's point of view. Let's get started. I don't remember where I left off, but he decided that he wasn't going to sleep there that night and he was going to find a place, but went to go look for like an Airbnb or a hotel. He remembered that he lost his wallet. So he ended up sleeping in a diner. And then she went to go get food the next morning and she saw him sleeping and she confronted him. And they played a little game where they asked each other 5 questions. You find out that he's not comfortable with answering why he wasn't at his cousin's wedding, because she had a crush on him since forever. And she's like, I'm finally going to see him when I'm at the wedding. And she asked him, why weren't you at the wedding? And he doesn't answer, like he's not comfortable answering yet. And then you find out that she wrote a book already and got it published. And so that's why she quit her job. She doesn't think people will take her serious in the genre that she's writing in. So that happens. She goes visit her dad. She comes home the next day, or she comes home that same day, and he cooks her dinner. They're having a talk. And then she starts choking on her food. So she starts drinking wine. And she has one too many cups, or one too many glasses, I should say. They both fall asleep. They wake up the next morning. He takes a shower. And they live in like a studio, so it's small. So he's like walking around and she calls him. And then he only has on like a towel and she's just staring at him and he notices it. And then he's like, oh, and then he starts to realize like, oh, she has a crush on me. Like she likes me. And he knows that he used to surf, but he hasn't been surfing in like the past 6 months, but you don't say why. I mean, you don't know why. He doesn't say why. So my guess is that the same reason why he wasn't at the wedding is the same reason why he wasn't surfing, which I don't know. And then her reason, she still hasn't told anybody that she quit her job. She wrote a book and like she said, she's just nervous of how she will be judged. Oh, and she has a deadline due for her second book that she hasn't been working on. But now you know that she has a deadline due for her second book. Yeah, that's it. That's really been what's happening. You read from both people's point of views. Her name is Rosie. His name is Lucas. Oh, and he's convinced her to stay, so they're officially roommates now. Yeah, like I said, you read from both people's point of views, so the chapters are pretty lengthy. So initially I was like updating like every chapter. Then now I think I was like, after that was like me updating like every other chapter. Like I don't know, but I might go back to updating every chapter just depending on what happens, because like one chapter is from her point of view and then one chapter is from his point of view, and you find out a lot about each of them in those chapters. And like I said, they're pretty lengthy. Like one chapter could be like 15, 16 pages. And so a lot happens, or you find out a lot about that person within that chapter, especially in the early stages. So we'll see. Yo, what are you doing? What are you doing? Bro, what are you doing? It says, I was ready to tell him he had another thing coming if he thought he was sleeping on the couch again, that I was preparing it for myself, but the word died on the tip of my tongue when I turned and encountered the sight before me. It wasn't naked calves. It was far, far better than that. It was Lucas in sweatpants, gray sweatpants, in a thin cotton tee, but the sweatpants, they hung low on his hips, and the fabric clung to his legs. His oh-so not naked calves, and his 2 strong-looking thighs, and those much, much more interesting parts that hung right between them. Like, bro, what are you doing? What are you reading right now, bro? Okay, so I just read a little more. You heard a little bit. She's a little, she's something else. She's something else. The gray sweatpants thing is something else. She's something else. They're just pretty much debating who's gonna sleep in the bed and who's gonna sleep on the couch, because it's a studio apartment. So if y'all don't know, a studio apartment is like one room, not a 1 bedroom. Like there's a kitchen and then there's a room. So they're debating who's gonna sleep on the bed and who's gonna sleep on the couch. So there's another part. Lucas says, Rosie, he said in a low warning voice that made my stomach flop for some reason. Take the bed. He smiled, but it wasn't lighthearted and fun. Don't make me fight you over this, because I will. How is the part that made my stomach flip-flopping and wanted to ask him, how would he fight me exactly? Like this girl, she
She's a little freak.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, like, because the end of the chapter is so crazy, I forgot to mention, in the beginning of the chapter, she starts writing her book, or she's writing, like, parts of her book, and then I think her neighbor, well, her now neighbor, but obviously, you know, she's just staying there for a little bit. She needs help moving a couch, and then they try to move it, and it doesn't work, but then Lucas comes, and he helps to move it, and I think the neighbor has, like, Alzheimer's, and so Lucas mentions that, his grandma, I think she had the same thing, and it's either his grandma or his grandpa, one of them. He mentions that they had the same thing, and maybe that's the reason why he didn't make it to the wedding and everything's been bad. Maybe he hasn't been dealing with it well or something like that. I don't know yet. We'll see.
It's kind of late, but I feel like reading, so I'm gonna read a little bit, maybe just like couple of chapters or whatever, maybe a chapter. I got class at 9 in the morning. Class at 9 in the morning, and it's 10:30 at night. So I'm gonna read for a little bit. See, I don't know if I updated on the last chapter. Oh, I did. I'm going back. Like, I remember what I read, but I remember updating you guys about the gray sweatpants situation. But it is what it is. Okay, so that chapter was a little spicy, but also a little slow at the same time. They talked about, so she had to go see her landlord, because the reason why she's living there, I don't know if I said this in the beginning, but there's like a crack in her ceiling. She calls it a crack, but it's like a whole thing where like you can see the whole upstairs at her apartment. It's bad, so there's like a landlord and like a construction guy there to look at it. But her landlord, he's just rude and disrespectful. And then Lucas says like, oh, can I go with you? And she's like, yeah. And then so like her landlord's kind of like belittling her, talking down to her. And after a little while, like he's had enough. No, he's had enough. So he steps in and he tells him pretty much like, kind of like, watch your tone. Don't talk to her like that. Like, you need to be respectful. He starts like defending her. So it's a little cute scene. But then she has like a mental breakdown where he asks her like, what's wrong? She does a typical girl thing. And she says like, oh, nothing's wrong. And he's like, what's wrong? And she's like, nothing. And she starts screaming, and she's pretty much just venting to him about like how she's lying to her dad about how she quit her job, how she just started her period, how there's a crack in her ceiling and she doesn't know where her brother is. She's just stressed out about a lot of things. She has 8 weeks until her manuscript is due. So that's it. That's mainly what happened. I think it's cool. Like, you got to defend your girl. Like, you have to. Like, the thing is this is the funny thing, right? She has a crush on him, but she be trying to like suppress it. But he already knows that you have a crush on him. It's just it's that mind game of like, I know she likes me, but she can't say it. But I catch her like staring at me, doing things, and she's trying to play it off like, oh no, I don't like you like that. But it's a game of like cat and mouse, like tug of war, like push and pull. It's just that game of. It's pretty funny because it's like, here she is like crying in front of him and he's there to like comfort her. And there he is, like, even though they keep calling each other like roomie or like friend, even though she's not officially like his significant other or like his girlfriend or whatever. If you're out in public and somebody's disrespecting her, you have to defend her. That's just the rules. So it is what it is. It's spicy. It's getting a little spicy. I just left class, came straight to work today. I'm picking this up, and from where I left off, I think where I left off was talking about, yeah, like how she had got into it with her landlord about her apartment, and she had her meltdown. But yeah, she was talking about how like she had got into it with her landlord and stuff like that. So she's gonna pick up right there. Okay, so I just finished the chapter. Her best friend finally called her, and they had a talk, and she kind of vented to her best friend about how she regrets quitting her job. She thinks she's a failure. She's going through writer's block. Her best friend pretty much gives her like a pep talk, inspiring her, telling her like who she is. Like, nah, you wrote a book that was amazing. And then she wants to tell her best friend that she's living in her apartment and her cousin are sharing, but
she's still kind of nervous, so she doesn't do it. But amongst telling her best friend or just having a conversation with her best friend, Lucas walks in and he kind of overhears her and this, and this. And yesterday when she had the meltdown, she was crying. She talked about how she wanted these cronuts. So he's standing in the door and she's asking him like how your day is and everything, and he's telling her, and then he surprises her like with the cronuts. And it's just weird because it's like they both like each other now, like, and it's obvious, but they keep calling each other roomie or they keep calling each other friend. Like, it's weird. But she's telling her like, you need to, her friend is telling her, friend's name is Lena, and she's telling her like, you need to start dating again, you need to start dating again, you need to start dating again. The last guys you dated, like, don't date them. He needs like a new type. She calls them ass faces. And then so now Lucas overheard her, and so they're eating their cronuts, and he asked her, so can you tell me about the past guys that you've dated? That's pretty much just what's happening. Okay, so I just finished the chapter. They're talking about like he overheard her, and when she was talking to her friend, she was talking about doing a dating experiment, like maybe not dating the guy, like dating the guy, but him not knowing that it's just an experiment to see what happened. And then so she starts talking about her past exes. One of her exes, they dated for 6 weeks, and then she saw him kissing another guy, and then she confronted the guy, and he acted like he didn't know who she was. And then the other guy, the whole time he was dating her, she said he would be off and on, like extremely nice, and then extremely crazy, extremely nice, and extremely crazy. But he was like pretty much, it was like a role. Like he was saying what he could like get away with. It was like for like a script. He was like a screenwriter. And it was just all that, like a facade, like an act. So Lucas has agreed to be her experiment. He told her like, no, like don't download Tinder, don't do this. He's like, I'll just be the experiment. You can experiment on me, which is weird because they both know like that it's not real. Obviously she really does like him, but he says, he's like, I vow never to fall in love with you. So she's like kind of heartbroken. He's like, trust me, I know we'll just always be friends. And she likes him though. She really likes him. So I don't know, I'm a little lost, because can you really run an experiment on somebody if they know that it's like a test or like an experiment? But who knows, we'll see. My guess was that like before all of that, like, I thought like she was gonna obviously run the experiment on him, and then like one is gonna catch feelings. That's how it goes. Like I've seen Friends with Benefits so many times, and I love that movie, and one person always actually catches feelings. So that's why I'm a little lost on like, they're both like, we're not gonna catch feelings, where I feel like he knows that she likes him already, and she definitely does like him. Like she says it all the time. So I'm just a bit lost on like how this actually works. Okay, so they just went on their first date. They explained to each other how they lost their virginity. It's pretty funny. The end was pretty funny. When he explains how he lost his virginity, she talks about having her first kiss. I like the way that he's kind of approaching it, where like he's making it seem like they don't know each other already. Like he knocks on her door, even though they're roommates. He comes to the apartment, he knocks on her door, and she, I guess, doesn't understand it in the beginning, where he's like, so are you gonna invite me in? She's like, you live here. He's like, so invite me in. And then he invites her in, and he's like, oh, and I guess like in the beginning she doesn't understand that he's making it seem like this is our first date, like we don't know each other, where she's kind of like, what is he doing, like he lives here? But then she starts talking, and she kind of goes along with it, and she starts to understand. He takes her out on their first date. They talk a little bit about she talks about her, he asked her about her first kiss and how it went, and she explains and how it went bad. And then she asked him about his first kiss, and he says like, I don't have a story like that. So then she asked him, okay, well, what about losing? Like, what about an embarrassing story or something? And he talks about how he lost his virginity. It's pretty funny. It's picking up though. So this is the first date. They are running this experiment. Like I said, if they go with how he's doing it, he's kind of acting like he doesn't know her. Like this is their first time, like he's courting her. I kind of like that. But if it's just gonna be, we're just gonna go out and have a date, but we already know this is an experiment, it's not gonna really work. Okay, so they just had their second part of the date. The first part of the date was going to the store to pick out a record, and then the second part of the date is he takes her home. Like when they're in the record store, that's what she tells him about like first kiss and how he lost his virginity. And then they go home, and they start like dancing. They're having like this little party, not a party, but they're just dancing together. They're listening to the music when they're dancing, and then a rat like comes in, and she's terrified of like rodents, so she gets scared and she freaks out, and he picks her up and he like puts her on the counter, and he like protects her while opening the door or closing the door.
his knee buckles and he falls. So I don't know if I've mentioned this, but he's on like this vacation or like this trip around visiting all of the states. I think it's for 6 months and he has 6 weeks left and he spends that in New York, but we don't know why. Like, I think he has an injury because he's a surfer. So I don't know if I mentioned that. While finding out that he also has an injury and he's been visiting the neighbor and she's dealing with like Alzheimer's, and he resembles a lot of her husband who has passed away. So he visits her a lot and she tells her daughter, and her daughter comes and says, thanks for like taking care of my mom and doing this and being there for her. And Rosie's like, you visit her every day? And he's like, yeah. But Rosie's kind of like the jealous type, like, and she is like, he was telling a story about how he lost his virginity. That's the thing, is in this book, like I said multiple times, you read from their point of views, and when she's telling the story about her first kiss, like you kind of get the feeling of like Lucas is more like protective, but he's also like, oh, I feel bad that that happened to you. But when Lucas is telling her the story that she asked, like an embarrassing story, and he's like, how I lost my virginity is kind of embarrassing, he starts telling the story and she's kind of like, why do I wish I was that girl? Like, I wish I was her. Like, I'm kind of upset with her. I'm like a low-key like jealous type. And it's like, okay, so the end of that chapter, the chapters are kind of like a lot happens in, so I feel like to update after each chapter. Okay, so that chapter, she went to go visit her dad again in Philly. She finds out that her dad and like the neighbor have like a little thing going on. But the surprise is when she comes back, her brother was supposed to go with her, but he didn't make it. So when she comes back on the train, he's waiting for her at the train station. When she sees her brother, she notices that he has like a busted lip or like a cut lip and a black eye. And she's like, what's wrong? He doesn't want to tell her at first. She's like, oh, nothing. It just happens. It just happens. He's like, it's from work. And then she's like, are you selling drugs? You told me you were working at a nightclub. He's like, no. He's like, I'm a dancer. And which I kind of figured when he said that he working at a nightclub and he makes good money. So he's a dancer. And she's like, oh, he dances for money. That's what she thinks. She's like, why didn't he tell me? Why didn't he tell me? Why couldn't he just tell me? But the thing that I thought of in that moment and that she gets to later on in the chapter is she's very aware of who she is versus who the people are around her. Like, she's very judgmental, I guess, because her dad doesn't tell her certain things and her brother doesn't tell her certain things. But she's also not telling her dad that she quit her job, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm such a hypocrite. She's like, because they're keeping secrets from me, but I'm also keeping secrets from them. And so I like the accountability or the self-recognition. And also, like, she comes back home and after what happened with her, not with her dad, but she comes back home after what happened with her brother, and Lucas is there waiting for her, like asking her, is everything okay? Is everything fine? Is everything all right? And she says, yeah, even though it's not. And she's like, here I am again, keeping secret. She's like, but I also don't want to be the person that's just moping around sad all the time. She's like, I always feel like Lucas is doing something for me, but I'm never doing something for him. So that's the first step, is admitting. But I want to see if she eventually, obviously, she's going to have to tell her dad that she quit her job. But I want to see her not be the hypocrite, not get so mad that somebody is keeping a secret from her. Or I want to see her acknowledge, like, yeah, I'm always sad. I'm having a mental breakdown in front of him again. But let's see, I want to see what she does to, be there for him, because it's supposed to be a romance book. I want her to be there for him because he's always there for her. So when his secret gets revealed, we'll see how she reacts. 7 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock. I've been up since 6:37 this morning, but I'm gonna read a little bit, see how far along I get. We'll just go from there. Like I said, I don't like updating after every chapter, but the chapters are so lengthy. You don't want to miss something. Something's always happening. So we'll see. I just finished the chapter and he told her that because of the injury that he has, he'll never be able to surf as good as he did before. She kind of senses the mood and she senses that it's a lot for him, so she kind of leaves it. And that's all that really happens in that chapter, really. That's the big reveal. His cousin. Okay, so his cousin just came back in town, Lena, and she caught them he had just got out the shower. He just has a towel
wrapped around his waist, no shirt. And she's in like her pajamas, which are like really, really short shorts. And so she's like, did you sleep with her? Like, that's my best friend. Like, I'll kill you. Why can't you just she says like, why can't you keep your penis to yourself? She's going at it. She's like very, very feisty, very, very aggressive, very, very protective because she loves Rosie. Rosie's like her sister. So she loves her. So he's trying to explain to her like, we're just friends. We're just friends. We're just friends. We're just friends. And so now it's weird because he had mentioned earlier in the chapter, he's like, oh, I like her. Like he was staring at her. He was eyeing her. Even when she came out in like those shorts, he's like, oh my gosh, those shorts are going to be like the death of me. And then like, as he's thinking about all these things, she just burst into the door. She's like, so are you guys together? Have you guys? And he's like, I'll just keep it 100. Like we haven't fucked. She's like, are you guys been flirting? She's like, long stares, touching each other, this, and this. And they're like, no, we're just friends. So now it's like, it's another dynamic of like, he likes her, but he can't tell her. And he also has this thing where he thinks he's not like good enough. She likes him, but she can't tell him because she's shy. And now that the cousin is in between, like neither one of them could really like each other. And so they told her that like she's just friends, but they haven't told her about the experiment that they both have already agreed to. She doesn't know about that. Just a little update. It's kind of funny. I mess with the cousin. She's like feisty. Explaining his Lucas juju. Pretty much he makes girls fall for him and then he leaves them. He doesn't get attached to girls and she loves her. She loves Rosie. So she's like, if he does that to you, then I'm gonna have to kill him. But that's my favorite cousin and I don't want to kill him. She's like, I don't want him to hurt you, Rosie. I don't want him to hurt you, Rosie. She's like, trust me, I know, like he seems charming. He seems nice. He seems like he's all of these things. But like, you're not the first girl that he's done that to. She says like, he's never brought a girl home. And so trust me, like he seems nice. He seems kind. He seems all of these things, but don't get fooled. Okay, so I just finished a couple of chapters. It kind of slowed down, to be honest. The neighbor who suffers from Alzheimer's, she has a daughter. Her and her daughter came over for dinner and Lucas made them food. And apparently Lucas is like this amazing cook. It was mentioned before in the book, but like he's like this fantastic cook. And their daughter owns like this super high-end fancy restaurant. And she's like, if you ever want a job or if you ever think about going to school or if you ever want to work, I have a job for you. That happened. They're at the masquerade ball right now and you're reading from Rosie's point of view. She talks about how they just got ready and that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's been slow, really. It's been slow. It slowed down. So that's making me think that like something big is getting ready to happen. Like something really big is getting ready to happen, but I'm gonna pick it up tomorrow. So I think last night where we left off, they were in the masquerade ball and we were reading from Rosie's point of view. I think that's really all that had happened. Now it looks like we're still at the ball, but I think now it's from Lucas's point of view. We're gonna go ahead and read through this and see what happens. Okay, well, that was a little eventful. So they're at this masquerade ball, and in the beginning, you read from her point of view, then you read from Lucas's point of view. People keep bumping into each other, things keep happening. Somebody spills a drink on her. So he's like, okay, let's go get you cleaned up. And then she's like, okay, that's fine. So he's patting her down, like drying her off. Some of the liquid like spilling down like her neck. And then he like dabs it. And she's like, they both like pause and they're like looking at each other. He's like, I just want to make sure I get everything off. And then her being her says, well, you know, to be honest, like it's not only there, like there's some like in other places. And he's like stuck. And then like, so he helps her. So whatever. At one point, like he unzips her dress. She's in the stall cleaning herself up. And then he has the dress like under the hand dryer. He's trying to dry it. And a person walks in and he starts talking to her and she grabs him. And now they're both in the stall. She only has on her bra and panties and he's stuck. Like he's like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So he closes his eyes. And she tells him like, oh my gosh, you're so adorable. Like you close your eyes because you don't want to see me. She tells him like, is that like not what you want or something? And then he's been on edge the whole night. Like he has her close to him because there's so many people. He gets pushed into her and she gets pushed into him. And
things are touching, and so he's on edge. So then finally when he sees her, like it gets spicy. Like it's a whole out thing. Like he's holding her, he's caressing her, he's whispering in her ear, and they say like he's like, do you just want to go back home and leave this party because like you're soaked? And so I'm thinking like, did I miss a part and they're back in the apartment and all of this is happening? No, I'm like they're still in the stall doing all of this. Every whispering like in the bathroom stall at the masquerade party. What? So I'm just like, okay. And then they're whispering to each other, they're doing all of this. And then finally Lena comes in and she's like, Rosie, are you in there? She's like, I've been looking for you everywhere. And they're both just doing the like, uh-oh. It's spicy. There is one part at the end. It says, never in my life had I let anybody sway my actions. Never allowed the world or their opinions to dictate how I lived, who I befriended, dated, or fucked. I never cared enough. And I didn't care what Lena would think of Rosie and me. I cared about Rosie. I mess with that. And so it ends like that. Like she's still, because they don't know where Lucas is. They think they haven't found him. They're like, is he in the bathroom with you? And she's like, no, I'm in here alone. The sexual tension between these two characters is crazy. So I want to read this next chapter and then we'll see. So I just finished and that like she kind of doesn't want to do the research anymore, but I think it's because she doesn't want to get like, she feels like, oh, I know he's leaving and this and this, and he's like, no, and then he's like, am I losing her, and that's kind of what's going on here. Not much. Okay, so it just got a little bit spicy. So they went on their last date, right? And she told him earlier, like a while ago, she says like, I wish I would have met you at the wedding. So on this last day, he takes her to this nice restaurant, the fancy restaurant, the restaurant that their neighbor's daughter owns, or like she's like the head chef at, or she owns, and then her wife is the head chef. He takes her there, they have a nice dinner, and then he says, I have one grand gesture for you. It's upstairs. So he takes her to an elevator. He goes her upstairs, and it's just like a balcony full of flowers, like they were at the wedding. And then it starts raining, it starts thundering, it's lightning, everything is happening. She's like, he has his arms around her, he's like holding her. And she confesses her love for him. And she says like, I wish it was real. The way you take care of me, the way you look out for me, the way you protect me, I want to do the same thing for you. And his face just goes blank. She's like, the things you give me, I want to give you those too. And like, she feels like an idiot. She feels like, oh no, like I shouldn't have said it. I don't want it. And so she starts crying. And he's like, why are you crying? She's like, I'm not crying, it's just the rain. He's like, no, tell me why you're crying. He's like, how do I make it stop? And she says, to make it stop, I want you to want me. Like, I want you to want me the way I want you. She's like, I don't want it to be pretend. He's like, you think this is pretend? You don't think I want you? And he goes into like this whole monologue. He's talking, he's like, you don't think I want you the way that you want me? You don't think I love you? You think the things I say are just for games? She's like, if it's true, if you really want me that way, then kiss me. And so he kisses her and they start making out and they're doing this, and he tells her, he's like, you said you wanted a kiss, what else do you want? They're in the rain, it's like all romantic. I'm reading it and I'm like, it's going a little too good. Her phone rings, her brother calls her. She's like, okay, I'm on my way, I'm gonna come get you right now. I'm gonna keep reading here for a little bit. We'll see where things go. Okay, so they went to go get her brother. He's a stripper, the owner of the club. He was gonna quit because he met a girl there and then he liked the girl, and then like he felt like he protected her and everything, so he didn't want to work there anymore. But he was really good and he brought a lot of attention, so the owner didn't want him to quit. So after their date, as their day got interrupted, Lucas and Rosie went to the strip club to get her brother, and then the owner, like I said, didn't want him to quit, so he came outside and he confronted them, and they got into a little scuffle, but Rosie and Lucas promised each other that they wouldn't engage, so the owner like pushed him and he got hurt, but Lucas didn't do anything. Like he was like, you're just not worth it. So they go back home. They go back to Lena's apartment. They're in Lena's apartment and Ollie falls asleep. Ollie is her brother. I don't know if I've ever said his name, but Ollie is her brother. He falls asleep, and then they share the bed together. But he finally tells her what happened. He didn't come to the wedding because a week before the wedding, he was training and he got injured. He was training for this big event. He got injured. He shattered his knee. He had to have surgery, and now he feels like he'll never be as good as he was, and he'll never be able to recover. So that's what they're talking about right now. So I just finished the chapter, and it's them waking up. Now you're reading from Lucas's POV, and he talks about how he has morning wood. Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing because they slept together last night, but not like together, like they shared the same bed. But he talks about like how he's rock hard and all, he has morning wood and all of this other stuff that's just going on. And he starts to like touch on her body, and he makes his way up her chest. He gasps when he remembers that like she doesn't have a bra on. She doesn't tell him to stop. She tells him to continue. It's a whole thing. They're like going for it. They're going for it. And then he remembers, he's like, your brother's asleep on the couch. And mind you, this is a studio apartment. So it's not a bedroom and then a living room and then a kitchen. No, it's just one big room with like a bed over there and then a couch over here. He's like, if your brother wasn't in here, I would definitely make you come. He's like, stop, you're gonna make me come in my sweatpants. She's like, she's toying back with him. It's spicy though. It's funny though. That for sure happened. It happened. Starts off, Rosie takes her brother to see her dad. Her dad lives in Philly. So Lucas, not being able to control himself, he gets in the shower. He's like, I'm gonna take a cold shower. I'm gonna blow off some steam. Starts masturbating in the shower. Talks about like how he turns his hand into a fist, how hard his cock is, all of these things. It's just weird. It's weird. It's weird. And so when you first read it, when I'm first reading it, I'm like, is he imagining this? It says, she drove me crazy. Just the thought of her did. And I tell her myself, I'd gladly watch her squirm out of her skin with less when I hum those words in Spanish. Love so much. He's talking to himself. Lucas? Question mark? Her voice broke with the haze coiling around me like smoke. Rosie? I replied, longing and surprise, coding her name, without stopping my hand because I just couldn't stop. I turned around. Rosie stood in the open bathroom doorway. In her coat, her keys dangling off her hand. Her cheeks were deep shaded pink. I wanted to taste with my tongue. Isn't this bug? It's normal though, like it's not like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. I'm just thought like, eventually knew it was gonna happen. Sexual tension was so high, like how could it not happen? But it's just the way that it happened, I guess. Chapter 27 is where things go down. That happened again. Again. Oh my gosh. 2 times in less than 24 hours. It's midnight and then she's like, oh my gosh, I want to text him, but she's like, I can't. And then as soon as she goes to text him, he texts her. They get to talking, they're flirting. And then she says, I wish you were here right now. And he's like, do you mean that? And she says, yes. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes passed, 5 minutes passed, 15 minutes passed. She's like, 30 minutes passed. She's like, where is he? Where is he? She's like, maybe he fell asleep. Maybe he's getting food. She's like, oh my gosh, calm down. And then the buzzer rings and it's him. He's at her door. It gets spicy all over again, all over again. She's wild. She tells him like, I want you to finish inside me, all type of stuff. She's like, I'm on the pill, this, and this. And she's like, I'm clean, like I haven't had sex in a while. And he's like, this is my first time having sex without a condom. So it's his last night in New York. He spent like the next week and a half living with her. Now he's back to Spain and she's devastated. She's crying. She's telling him, I can't say goodbye. I can't go with you to the airport. Like he's crying and everybody's crying now. She ran to the airport. Don't do that. Don't make it like that. It's getting good. It's getting good. I like this right here. This is what I like. This is what I like. She ran to the airport for him. She ran to the airport for him. She says she ran to the airport. She says, that's my grand gesture. She says, stay with me, Lucas. Be with me. I want you. I wanted you for a long time. I know I can't stay in the country. I know you can't stay in the country without a visa. I want you. I want you every day. I want to go on dates with you. I like it. She tells him, like, I want you every day. Like, I always want to be with you. And then he tells her, I can't. But it's not that he can't be with her. He just can't let her give up her life in New York. She has a writing career. She's successful. Okay, so she went to her dad's house. Her dad opened the door. She started crying. And then she finally tells him that she quit her job, that she's been writing a book, everything that happened. So then her dad calls Lena. Lena comes, her best friend. She finally tells Lena the truth. And now she's in there crying. She misses him so much. And nothing really happened, but I'm just glad that she finally told her dad the truth, that she finally told everybody the truth. And now she's sad. She just misses him. And that's pretty much where we're at right now. Okay, Lena's been trying to call Lucas for like 3 weeks. He's just been ignoring her. Lucas picks up, starts ripping into him. What's wrong with you? You're an idiot. You really don't see. You don't get what you did. He knows that she's gonna do that. That's why he doesn't answer. But then he's like, I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. But she starts telling him, what's wrong with you? Like, she loves you. That's what I'm saying. Like, I agree with her. Like, she loves you. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, if you love her the way you do, and she loves you, why are you telling her no? So he starts saying, like, wait, she loves me, she's in love with me, like, she really loves me. And she's like, do you not get it? Like, of course she loves you. She says one thing that sticks where she's like, Rosie thinks out everything and she's very like particular about things. But with you, she put all that aside and was like, I'm gonna fall in love with him. And she's like, you still don't get it. She's never done that for anybody but you. So he says, like, I'm good enough now, but I won't be good enough like in the future. He's like, I have no plans. Like, after he got hurt and everything, he's like, I have no plans. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not good enough. She deserves better. She's like, she wrote you a book. And he's like, she wrote me a book. And he's like, yeah, it's a love letter to you. And then the chapter ends. But I agree with Lena. Like, but like he said, like, he doesn't think that he could take care of her in the long run. Like, he doesn't have a plan. He doesn't know what he's doing. And so that's keeping him from completely falling in love with her, which I see both sides. Like, I understand, because like, you want to be able to have your own thing, be able to provide, be able to love and protect somebody. And if you can't do that, then you feel like you're not giving enough to that person. But if they're telling you it's enough, if they're telling you, no, what you did is enough, what you did is enough, what you did is enough, at a certain point, you got to just trust them. You got to believe them. Okay, so it ended. It didn't end how I thought it was going to end, which is fine. Like, I don't mind. I didn't cry. I didn't get goosebumps. I kind of found it a little weird. So she spends like Thanksgiving sad. She spends Christmas sad. I don't know how long he was gone. I'm assuming at least 3 months. And so finally on New Year's, Lena takes her out to a New Year's party and it's counting down and she tells her, make a wish, it might come true. And they're like, 5, 4. She's like, you never know. 3, 2, 1. And then he shows up, he grabs her, he kisses her. She's like, oh my gosh. He tells her, like, I'm sorry. He apologizes. He said that he read her book and he saw what she sees in him. Like, he couldn't see it himself. Or when reading the book, looking through her eyes, he sees like, oh, this person who's beautiful could still love me, even though I'm not the best version of myself. But leaving her isn't going to make me the best version of myself. I have to do better and want for her. So he started going to physical therapy. He's gonna end up going to culinary school. That's how it ended. He's like, I'm sorry for what I did at the airport. I hope you could take me back. And he's just apologizing and she accepts him and it just ends. It's happily ever after. There's an epilogue. I haven't read it yet. If there's any more to update you on, I will, but that's how the story ends. That's how the book ends. Okay, so just finished it. I'm gonna take some time, concise my thoughts, really. It's a good book, but I want to go over it all again. Probably gonna do a video reviewing it, right? Think about what I really want to say, how I really feel. But that's the end of the vlog, I think.